want to start by removing all the ignition coils, get those out of my way. To do that, you have a little red tab that you have to push backwards. That unlocks the connector. Now you can squeeze on the tab, pull the connector back, and with an 8mm socket, remove this bolt. Now the ignition coil is unlocked, ready to come up. Pull it out of the way, and do the same to the rest of them. All right, now with all of them up and out of your way, if you have debris here, you want to pay attention that it doesn't fall down. I'm actually going to get the vacuum and vacuum all this up. Let's unplug these two variable valve timing solenoids. Pull back on this purple lock, press down on it, pull the connector out. Let's do the same to this one over here. And now you have to pull the wire off of these studs. Just pull up on it, it should move out of the way. There we go. Just follow it along. I'm going to remove this one as well. That way I can get more movement out of it. And let's disconnect it over here. Basically, I'm just going to unplug everything that is in the way of me moving this harness. Let's disconnect this connector as well at the back here. Okay, pull that off, and then since we're here, take this connector off. It's got, I'll show you in a second, it's got this tab on the bottom. Push on it, that releases it, pull it back, set that aside. Now I'm going to take this wiring harness and pull it up and over this right here, just like that, because now that you pull this foam piece out of the way, there's a bolt right there that you have to get to, a little 8mm bolt, or nut on a stud, I guess, and we'll need access to that. So now we'll just go around and remove all the 8mm nuts and bolts that are holding this valve cover on. There's nothing else that's connected. It's just wiring that's going to be in the way, but we'll work around that. This bolt here holds this line onto the valve cover, so this needs to get removed. Set that aside. Okay, that's free. Now I'll just work my way around, remove all the 8mm nuts and bolts. Okay, they stay in there. That's fine. Okay, get to this one over here. And now there are a few bolts right in the middle of the valve cover. Now everything is unattached. The valve cover is stuck on there just from it being on there for so long. And I'm going to take a pry bar and very, very gently pry up on this. Now, I can't stress enough how gentle you have to be with this because it is plastic and it will break. Also, sometimes a little rubber mallet can help break things free. Oops. I'm pulling up at the same time as I'm hitting it. Try the pry bar again. Oh, it's breaking free. Okay, that's progress. This bracket here, you can take it, either twist it out of the way so that the valve cover can go up or pull it up, but you can move this. Now let's see if we can get a little bit more movement over here. Perfect. So this whole front side is broken free, but now the problem is the back side. I'm also going to remove the oil dipstick before it breaks. All right, so now this whole side is free, the back side is free. I think the only thing that's still holding us up is actually these seals that go around the variable valve timing solenoids. So we just have to gently work this valve cover up and off of these. They kind of have to slide off. It won't be easy, and you definitely want to be gentle. You don't want to break this. There we go. That came off. Wiggle it off the back side here. Lift it up. Now we just have to get this wiring out of the way so we can remove the valve cover. Try to get as little debris in here as possible. Okay, pull the valve cover gasket up. Here's your valve cover. And now we can get to our variable valve timing solenoid. So I'm going to replace this intake variable valve timing solenoid. It's the same for the exhaust, so no matter which one you have, it's the same procedure. Take out this 8mm bolt. Careful not to drop it in the engine. Set that aside. And now all you have to do is wiggle it, pull up and out. It's going to have oil all over it because it's activated through oil pressure, but here's the solenoid. Grab your new one and drop it down in. Make sure it goes in all the way. Reinstall your bolt. Snug it up. Perfect. And this rear one, I just want to wipe it. That way any debris that's on it gets removed and that oil seal can properly seal up against it. You don't want any external oil leaks here. There we go. And then before I reinstall the valve cover, I went ahead and wiped the surface where the gaskets sit, and make sure you wipe away from the engine. Obviously, don't put any dirt inside your engine. It's always a good idea to replace your valve cover gasket every time you take it off, unless you have just replaced it, obviously, and it's still nice and soft. Now slide in your valve cover. Try not to damage anything on the way in. It's not going to be easy, just like removing it. A little bit at a time is what gets you where you need to be. Okay, make sure the gasket's still seated where it needs to be. I'm feeling for it to make sure it is. Yep, and yep, okay. So let's position this in its final position. There we go. Now these seals have to drop down. Perfect. Everything else is lined up. All the bolts are lined up. I'm going to start them all by hand. That way I make sure they don't cross thread. And then we'll snug them all up. Yep. All right, they're all started. Let's snug them up. Now, let's start with the two middle ones. Actually, I'll start with this one. Snug it up. And then I'll work my way from the middle of the outside to the outside of the outside. Last one. Okay, now if you want, you can go back and double check them, make sure they're all nice and tight. Push this wiring back into place. Kind of went underneath there. Reconnect it right there since we're at it. And then let's put this bracket back. Put in the bolt that held it down. Perfect. And there was this foam piece that went over here. Set that down into place. Let's reconnect some connectors. There's one here. Since I'm back here, reconnect the hose. Make sure that clicks on. Moving along. Connector over here. And might as well put the ignition coils back. I like to put some silicone paste on the end of them That way it seals up against the spark plug nice, and it also prevents moisture from getting in there. Okay, make sure you lock the connector tab. Just work my way from one side to the other. Now that all the connectors are plugged in, let's resecure the harness all along. I guess you could have done this before too, but either way, just resecure the harness wherever you took it off. Plug these in. Lock it in. And this went over here. One last thing, put the dipstick back if you took it out, which I suggest that you do, otherwise it's going to get stuck in the valve cover or anything. That's it, everything is back together. Turn on your engine, make sure you have no check engine lights, and everything runs smoothly.